All right, we are going to go ahead and start today's meeting, December 16th, 2024. We'll call to order the meeting of City Council. Ms. Huntington, would you go ahead and take the roll, please?
Mr. Partridge?
Here.
Ms. McCutcheon?
Here.
Mayor Freeses out. Ms. Stevens?
Here.
Mr. Donnelly? Here. Mr. Dale?
Here.
All right, will you please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? All right. You've all had time to read the minutes from our last regular meeting on December 2nd. Is there any discussion about the meeting minutes? If not, I will look for a motion to approve.
Motion approved as presented.
All right, thank you, Mr. Donnelly.
I'll second.
All right, thank you, Mr. Partridge. All those approved?
Aye. Aye.
All right. Moving on to the consent agenda, so we can get the city's bills paid. I know you've all had a chance to review the consent agenda. If you have any comments or questions, now's the time to discuss. Seeing none, I'll look for a motion to approve.
I'll motion to approve.
Thank you, Ms. McCutcheon. Is there a second?
Second.
All right, that's been moved and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
All right. Moving on to old business, there is none. New business, all right, we'll pass this on to Dan. This is a routine event that happens this time of the year.
That's right. Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. This item is the council's consideration of approval of CMB applications for 3 different facilities in the city of Tonganoxie that wish to sell CMBs for retail sales in unopened containers for people to then consume off premises. These 3 locations are similar to last year. We actually had a 4th last year, but that was converted with the transition in that business in the case of Fast Tracks to a liquor store, which is a different kind of annual licensing from a CMB store for gas station CMB sales. So staff have reviewed the applications, reviewed the submittals from each applicant, conferred with our police department and police chief to ensure they have no concerns, and we have no concerns to represent back to you. So we'd be happy to take a motion for approval, after which staff would take the requisite steps with the state to finish this process.
Is there any discussion on this matter? Seeing none or hearing none, I would look for a motion.
Do we need to name them separately or just approve the general?
They can be for as presented or named. Either way would work for us.
I would make a motion to approve the applications for the 3 as presented.
Is there a
I'll second.
Oh, all right. Motion by Mr. Donnelly and a second by Mr. Partridge. All those in favor?
Aye.
All right. That passes unanimously. All right, B is to just make some adjustments in budget adjustments for the fire equipment fund. Mr. Porter, I hear you have information on this, a little breakdown.
Yes, thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. So this item is an amendment to the Fire Capital Fund, which is used in the fire department for purchasing capital goods and equipment, and also in the case of grant matching expenditures. What we're talking about tonight is an amendment to the revenue and budget expectations planned for that fund. This is a little bit different than funds with tax levy or funds budgeted to the state budget form. All that's required by the city council to amend these budgets, which are called non-budgeted funds, ironically, is to approve a motion that permits the amendment as presented or with any other edits you might require. The reason for this amendment at the end of the year is because we have the opportunity through a grant program through the state of Kansas for volunteer firefighters to receive bunker gear, or what's called PPE, personal protective equipment, under a grant program at no cost to the city. So we apply for this grant and are reimbursed 100% for the cost of the bunker gear for our volunteers. As you'll remember, we have a blended department with full-time, part-time paid, as well as volunteers. So this grant will allow the city to fund a small share of our department with this completely paid for by a state program funding opportunity. We're asking for an adjustment of $15,000 in both expense and revenue in this fund, and this gives us the room at year end to anticipate making these purchases and hopefully receiving the funds back from the state before the end of the year. And so happy to take any other questions, but again, looking for that motion in the agenda statement, which is to approve the amendments as presented or with any other edits you'd like.
Is there any discussion on this matter?
Way to go.
I know, our fire department is holding it down with yet another grant. If there's no oh, go ahead.
I would make a motion that we approve the 2024 budget amendment to the fire department equipment fund. The fire equipment fund is presented and direct city staff to take necessary steps to file and report the budget amendment.
Excellent. Thank you, Mr. Donnelly. Is there a second?
Second.
All right. Thank you there, Jake. Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
All right,
That's great.
yeah.
Yes, it is.
Okay, letter C, Resolution 12-2101, creation of a special alcohol and drug fund. Can we get a little bit more detail on this, Mr. Porter?
Certainly. So this is an interesting item. We anticipated that at some point when we reached the population 6,000, that the city's receipt of
Let's acknowledge that, 6,000,
Yeah,
that's
that's
kind of a big
correct.
deal.
There's
I
a
know.
milestone.
Having grown up here, it's never thought we'd see the day. All right, sorry to interrupt, thank you.
That's all right, thank you. So, yes, the moment we were certified to reach 6,000 population occurred this summer in July of 2024. Every year, the state budget office certifies the population of all cities, counties, and unincorporated areas, townships in the state of Kansas. So we were excited to reach that milestone and pass 6,000 population. What it did change, though, was the handling of our special alcohol tax fund funding. So at the state of Kansas, they receipt all liquor and alcohol sales taxes and then proceed to, according to state statute, handle it in one of two ways. If you're under 6,000 population, the city receives a share that is actually about 46% of the overall sales proceeds, and it's divided 1/2 between the general fund and the special parks fund that goes to support parks maintenance and facilities. When you reach over 6,000 population, we're required by state law to divide our share, which is now a larger share of the pie at 70%, among 3 different areas at 1/3 increments. The general fund, the special parks fund, and then a newly created fund called the special, excuse me, I gotta make sure I get the name right.
Special alcohol and drug.
Special Alcohol and Drug Programs Fund. We're going to shorten it to Special Alcohol and Drug Fund. This fund is going to have restrictions on use that we'll talk about more in our budget development process, but in essence, it's a more targeted approach to focusing a share of the proceeds from alcohol sales on mitigation of some negative effects of alcohol abuse in the community and drug abuse in the community. So we'll talk more about what that looks like. It's going to start at a zero balance. We'll deposit some funds into it this month from the state. We get 4 remittances a year, so it'll take a while for there to be a significant amount of resources in the fund. So either next year sometime we'll make a budget amendment or look ahead at 2026 and target ways to utilize this funding source that we're now newly reporting and newly recording in this newly budgeted fund. We did check with the state budget office as to the proper way to create this fund, and so the draft resolution 12-2401 will allow staff to create this fund. And again, like I mentioned, we'll come back to you in the future with more information about what to do. So for now, it will just receive the funds and be building up over time as we get into next year. Happy to take any questions you might have, but we do, again, request that you consider a motion to approve the resolution and create this new budgeted fund.
Great. Thank you, Dan. Are there any questions?
Yeah, so the math on this is going to work like we're going to basically going to get the same amount in our general and our forgive me, on the other fund.
Special parks
Special,
funds.
right, that's right, parks. How much are we expecting this extra third to be then based on what we're getting now?
Right now, it's likely in the range of $2,000 to $3,500 a year as a 1/3, but that'll obviously can change as alcohol, venues that serve alcohol and caterers that do come and go in the community and add. So it could build over time more significantly.
We need to drink more.
Well, Dan needs to open
That's
his
what I'm
bar,
hearing.
is what I was gonna say. When Dan opens his bar, it'll be rolling in the dough.
If we only had a nice kitschy place downtown.
That's right,
Dang.
with
Well,
good
there's going to
lighting.
be a place for sale soon, so you guys cool your dollar. Okay, any more discussion? I would invite a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve Resolution 122401, creating a special alcohol and drug programs fund.
All right, is there a second?
I'll second.
All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
All right, thank you. We do have the November 2024 financial report. Now, Mr. Porter knows we have all read this and memorized it, but he may have a few highlights for us.
Thank you. I do have just a couple highlights. Again, we're nearly through the fiscal year. At the conclusion of November, a little over 91% of the way through our fiscal year. A couple highlights. One of slight concern is that, again, sales tax remittances were delayed from the state. We are in concert with other cities and counties across the state, appealing to the state treasurer that they work very hard at year end to respect our fiscal year end timeline and make the remittance. Luckily, with this year, the December 31st is a weekday, and so we anticipate that they will schedule in time. We haven't heard confirmation of that yet, but it always does promise to really throw our financials in a whack when we look to receive only 11 or and then corresponding year 13 monthly remittances of sales tax receipts. We'll have more in terms of sales tax progress in our next monthly financial report for you. One other thing that we want to highlight are EDA grants. We are at the point where we've submitted our last pay request to the EDA, so we expect by the end of the fiscal year to receive our last 47% of the total cost respective share of that project and close that grant up this year, which we're thrilled to have that coming close to completion. And then finally, ARPA funds, as you'll all remember, we've obligated the full little over $765,000 in funding that we remained after 2021, but we are currently still in possession of a little less than $500,000 as we work towards finishing the sewer plant expansion design and construction engineering project. So at this point in time, we don't know an exact timeline that will expend all of those funds, but it appears likely that it could be in early 2026 at this point. We are in compliance with ARPA reporting requirements and also, like I mentioned, the obligation requirement, which was to obligate all funds by December 31st of this year. The financial report has a lot more detail, including the detailed revenue and expenditure breakdown. We'll provide a little more thorough report for our fiscal year-end report 2 council meetings from now. And if you have any areas of particular interest you'd like to have examined, please let us know, and George and I would be happy to look at that more closely for you. Happy to take any questions you might have.
Thank you, Dan. Are there any questions?
Yeah, if we don't get the sales tax in time, since we're non-GAAP anyway, why don't we just say, hey, we're gonna be modified cash now and just record a receivable?
That is an option. One thing that we've notified our auditors about too is that this may be an eventuality. Unfortunately, cities are not in control of this process one iota.
Well, it
Otherwise,
it wouldn't be very, I mean, it's not complicated, right?
Yeah.
You know.
but it does present issues for cities across the state. So especially smaller communities that really make a focal point of balancing the years out so it isn't weighted one way and then short in the other.
Well, if everybody just calls that office and asks them, it'll take up all their time. I know. I think that we could just hope for the best.
If
but
only there was 1,000 years ago, some Italian who created a way to account for this.
Not 1,000 years
Correct.
ago.
All right, thanks again, Dan. You really do an excellent job.
Thank you.
City Attorney agenda. Would you like to introduce your guest?
Yes, Lauren is one of our new associates. She was a summer associate last year, came to a city council meeting because she's interested in city work. And so bringing her in this year.
Welcome. Glad you're here. The Mayor Pro Tem agenda. Because our mayor isn't here, I would like to recognize that some of our Tonganoxie individual athletes and coaches were recognized in the Lawrence Journal World for the fall 2024 fall all-area teams. Coach of the Year for football is Preston Troyer. Player of the Year for football, Todd Brown and Tanner Hand. An honorable mention was Talon Langford. For the boys cross country, Coach of the Year, John Tollefson. Player of the Year, Parker Welsh and Solomon Carter. Honorable mention was Jet Gilmore. For girls golf, Player of the Year was Peyton Van Middlesworth. And the final one is for boys soccer. Honorable mention was, two of them, James Britzman and Emery Weiser. So congratulations to those local athletes and coaches. And I have no other items on the agenda. For city council agenda items, anybody have any announcements? Okay, we have a little more bit of business that Jenny's going to introduce us.
I move that the city council recess into executive session to obtain legal advice about pending litigation involving the city pursuant to the attorney-client consultation exception in KSA 75-4319B2. The executive session will include the city attorney, city manager, and assistant city manager. The open meeting will resume in the city council chamber at 7:30 PM.
Second.
Oh, yeah. All those.
Aye.
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 Everyone.
No binding action was taken in the executive session.
All right. Mr. Dale?
Yes, I would like to take this moment to make my twice monthly motion that we adjourn.
Second.
Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 All right. Hey.
Important job in the city of Tonganoxie.